Okay, so today I want to talk about using classes. This is the beginning of Module 2, and we've already used some classes. So the scanner class is a great example of a class that we've been using now for the last week or two. Right? There are two steps when we want to use a class. We first create an instance of the class, usually using the new command. So it looks something like this. We say scanner KB equals new scanner, and then we give it some information it needs to tell it where we're reading from. So system.in means we're reading from the keyboard. Then we want to interact with our instance using the methods. We've read in an integer by saying int x equals kb.nextInt. So what happens is the computer is going to wait until the user hits a number, and when you hit the number, then enter, it gets read in by kb.nextInt and stored in the variable x. So the scanner class is the main class we've used so far. We've seen several methods with the scanner class. In particular, we've seen nextInt, that reads an integer, nextDouble, which reads a double number or decimal number, next, which reads a single string up until a space, so kind of like a word, and nextLine, which reads the entire rest of the line in. We've used the cursor analogy to say the cursor is just sort of sitting there waiting, and when you tell it to read a nextInt, it scoots over and tries to read an int. If you give it something other than an int, it's going to crash. So you have to give it what it's expecting, at least at this point. We're going to fix that later. So if you know you have to read an integer and then a word and then a double number and then a sentence on a single line, you would want to say nextInt, next double, then nextLine. Every time we create variables, they're always of either a primitive data type. We've talked about these. These tend to be ints, doubles, chars, etc. Or a class type. Scanner and even string are a class type, and we're going to see more about string here in a few minutes. With the primitive data type, we create the variable directly. So we say int x equals 5. When we say int x, we're declaring the variable and creating space for it in memory. And when we say x equals 5, we're storing the numerical value 5 into our variable. With a class type, we typically, not always, but typically use the new command. So an example is when we say scanner KB equals new scanner. What I'm doing is I'm creating a new variable named KB that will store a scanner object. Now KB is just a name. We could call this name anything we want. We could call it input. We could call it Fred if we wanted to, right? It's just a name. It's just sort of a handle that we can grab this object by. So we say scanner KB equals new scanner. Then later on when I want to read information, I say, okay, KB, grab the next int. Okay, KB, grab the next line.